right, welcome everyone. We are live on Facebook as well for everyone's information across 7 Facebook pages in Southeast Asia. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Miss Lilith. So hi everyone. I hope that you are all ready to learn for tonight's session. By the way, I am Patrick Gonzalez. I am from the Philippines, and I will be your host and moderator for this monthly IDP IELTS writing workshop with our IELTS expert, and together with my other co-hosts from, first we have Miss Marisa from Indonesia. We have Tuan Tran from Vietnam. We have Chao from Myanmar, and we have Sarah from Singapore. Before we begin, let me give you some information about our IELTS expert. She has been an IELTS teacher and trainer for more than a decade. Armed with an in-depth understanding of IELTS, she has helped hundreds of people from across Asia to prepare well for it. She enjoys sharing tips and strategies to help test takers reach the band score they need. Today, she will be walking you through IELTS writing for both academic and general training. So keep your eyes and ears open for some amazing tips. Without further ado, let us all welcome our IELTS expert, Jacqueline Fisher. Over to you, Miss Jackie.
Thank you so much, Patrick. It's a very nice introduction, a little bit embarrassing. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be with you this evening. I hope you're all well. I see that we have people from joining, quite a lot of people joining us this evening. And I see some people have said where they're from. I see someone from Laos. Do you want to let me know in the chat box where you're joining us from? I'm very curious. I look like I'm in some interesting kind of harbor. Actually, I'm in Australia at the moment, but usually I live in Singapore. But I'm down here visiting my family after a long time. So I'm very happy. I see Cambodia, Philippines. That's great. Singapore, yay. Oh, another person from Singapore. Thailand. See, we're totally regional. It's wonderful. This is the blessing of Zoom. You know, it has brought us all together from many places in the world. So it's really a Vietnam. How lovely. Oh, someone from Ireland. Wow, that's wonderful. It's like going back to my roots. I'm Irish originally, way back. Indonesian, Malaysian, so great. And I'm going to use this chat box to so that our webinar is a little bit more interactive. So it's not just me blah, blah, blahing away. So yeah, please, if you can open up that chat box. If you're on a laptop or desktop, it's just at the bottom. I think we're all Zoom experts now. So if you just click that chat box. If you're on a phone, I think you often have to swipe up to get to the chat box. So yeah. So this evening we'll be actually talking about the writing test. So I think for most people, the writing test is the one that people are most intimidated by. And there are quite a few things you need to do in the writing test. Yeah, so generally people are a bit worried about it. So that's why we have a whole session on the writing. So yeah, so I'm hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions. And really, this is your session. We will go through all the parts of the writing test, and whether you're doing academic or general, we'll go through both of those parts. So yeah, so we'll get really in depth with the writing test, and we don't assume that you know anything though. So we'll cover it all. Yeah, so I just wanted to let you know too that I saw a few people here from Myanmar, and I just heard that the IDP has opened their first test center in Myanmar. So that's very exciting, just last weekend. So congratulations to all those people in Myanmar. Now, okay, so I don't know if we have our first poll. I just wanted to wow, read my mind. I just wanted to find out a little bit about you all. So if you could answer this poll, that would be great. There's a few questions there, whether you've taken the test before, the minimum band that you need. Of course, we all want the highest possible, but what's the minimum you actually need? And whether you're taking academic or general, then I'll just get a bit more of an idea. Now, this is really your session as well, so please feel free to ask me questions in the chat. If I do miss them, our wonderful colleagues from around the region will answer your questions in the chat as well. They also know a great deal about IELTS. They're definitely IELTS experts as much as I am. So I'll just let this run a little bit more. Your exam is question here from Joyce. January 12th, you haven't practiced much on writing. You've still got a while, Joyce. You've got almost a month. It depends, Joyce, what band score you need and which level you're at. See, it's always dependent. So maybe you can tell me what band score you need. And I mean, I see the way you wrote that sentence. That looks pretty good. So yeah, maybe tell me what band score you need. Okay, so you need a 6 to 7? Yes, maybe that should be enough time. Yeah, you've got almost a month. I think you should be okay. As long as you practice. So IELTS is like any test. The more practice you do, the better you'll be, right? The more comfortable you'll be, the more confident you'll be. So, you know, you do have to work at it like any exam. So let's have a look at let's see what we've found out about everyone. So most of you haven't taken it before and some of you have, so that's fine. And if you have, you can ask me questions or concerns. Let's see, we've got most people need between a 6 to an 8. Yeah, this is generally the case. A few people need higher scores, okay? And we have more doing academic. Great, so that's great for me to know. And don't worry if you're, whether you're doing academic or general, no worries, we'll cover both. If you don't know yet, that's also okay, but you need to find out which test because they're a little bit different. Yeah, academic is usually for study. General is usually for migration. So we've got another question. Questions are coming thick and fast. It's difficult to get a band 6 in all categories. Again, that really depends on your level. And it's really writing that people find the most challenging. Often the listening and the reading, people find more straightforward. And then the speaking is really dependent on how comfortable you are in English. Yes, so let's see. Another question. I got band 6.5 in the writing last time, and you're currently aiming for 7.5, 2 days. Okay, well, you're cutting it a bit fine, and you're jumping a whole band, but hopefully maybe you'll get some good tips from here. Yeah, if you can show someone you're writing who has really good English, that would be a good thing to do as well. Okay. Oh, we need a 6 on writing. Yeah, okay. Okay, everyone's sharing their nerves. I know you'll be nervous, but the more you practice, the better off you'll be. Okay, so, all right. Okay, so let's get into this because we have quite a lot to cover. That's the thing about webinars and about IELTS. IELTS, we could talk about it for 2 months really, but we have to try to get through everything in 2 hours. Now there will be time at the end for questions. So if I miss your question, you'll be able to ask it again. And if a question occurs to you at the end, we'll definitely be able to answer it. So can you let me know what you know about the writing? So how long is your writing test? How many things do you have to do? What do you already know? You can type in the chat box. So how long is this writing test? And how many things? Yeah, yes. So it's 1 hour long, exactly. And there are 2 parts. That's right. So we're going to look at everything. 2 tasks and it's 1 hour. It's hard, says... It's not that hard. You just have to understand what you have to do. And that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay, so let's have a little look at how it works. So if you're doing academic, yeah, you have 2 tasks. So the first task is to describe something using words. So it could be a graph, it could be a chart, it could be a table, could be a number of different things. And then the second task is you have to write an essay. So that's what you're doing for academic writing test. And then general writing test, I do have to tell you that it's a little bit more straightforward. Your first job is to write a letter. That's a little bit unusual because we don't really write letters anymore, but this is a letter. And then our second job is to, again, write an essay. Yeah, so I saw a question about generating ideas. You have trouble doing that. So we're going to talk quite a lot about that. So that's a great question, and I will get onto that. Okay, so just remember you have to do 2 things in this 1 hour. So these days you have an option. So I'm also curious, can you let me know in the chat, are you planning to take your test computer delivered or paper based? It's the same content. The content is exactly the same. It's just on the computer, it's all typed, or all the 3 tests are done on computer. So I see a lot of people are planning to take the computer delivered. Yes, it's very popular now. I see a couple of paper based. Yeah, so people always ask me, well, which one's easier? Which one's better? This really depends on you and your skills. If you're very comfortable typing, if you're comfortable using a mouse and a computer, then maybe the computer delivered will be better. You have to read on the screen. So the reading test is also on the computer. But if all of that is scary to you and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't deal with that computer, all the things to do with the computer, then choose paper-based. It's the same test. You do get your results faster for computer delivered, 3 to 5 days. And usually there are more sessions with the computer delivered. Okay, yeah, so you really have to know yourself, but it's not like one is easier than the other. Okay, so now before we get into talking about these different things you have to do, it's really important that we know what the examiner is looking for. In IELTS, and this applies to the whole of the IELTS test, it's very much following the instructions. You do what the examiner has asked and you will get the marks, that you need. And when it comes to the writing, the examiners are only looking at 4 things. They only care about 4 things. So does anyone know what any of those 4 things are? What are they looking at when they read your writing? Lexical resource, I see. Task response, yes. Grammar, oh, you guys. Fluency is actually for the speaking, but that's, so not really for the writing. Structure, coherence, yes, I see some good words here. Great. Now let's go through these four things, because you really need to know, because when you write, you have to keep thinking of these 4. So the 4 are task achievement or task response, cohesion and coherence, which people said, lexical resource. This is your vocabulary. This is like a fancy word for your vocabulary, and the grammar, grammatical range and accuracy. Okay, so each of these are worth an equal amount. So we have to think about all 4. Let me talk a little bit about what they mean. Okay, so task response or task achievement. Basically, this means, did you follow the instructions? Did you stay on the topic? Did you answer the question? Did you think of good reasons and examples? Yeah, so the 4 things should be on your handout that you should have received. Yeah, it's all in there in the handout. That's right. So that's the first one, is answering the question. Now, the second thing is your structure. Is it a nice, clear structure? And a very easy thing to do that you must do, and some people forget, is paragraphs. You must have paragraphs. Okay, so usually in IELTS writing, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 paragraphs. There's not a rule, but you've got to have nice, clear, separate paragraphs. Then the other part here is it's got to flow nicely. Yeah, so to make it flow, each paragraph, it must be clear what that paragraph's about. And then you also need to use what we call linking words, to make it flow, to guide the reader. So things like firstly, in addition, on the other hand, these kinds of linking words to make your writing flow. That's important. So that's the second thing. Third thing is your vocab. So, the examiners will see a lot of kind of boring words, words like good, bad, nice, okay. These words are a little bit simple if you want a 7 or higher than a 7. So if you want a 7 or more, you need to use some more unusual words. but you also need to use them correctly. Yeah, and then bad news for many of us is that under the vocab is also spelling. The spelling matters, and there's no spell check, even if you do it on the computer. Sad to say, no spell check, because that would not be fair for the paper-based, would it? Yes, so spelling matters. Many of us don't have good spelling, so we need to work on that. And then the last one is the grammar. Okay, so the grammar is also important, and there's two parts we see here. So first of all is being accurate. So if you want a 7, you probably need to be about 70 to 75% correct. 8, 80 to 85%. So just a few little mistakes. But it's not just about correct, right? It's also about what we call range. Yeah, so I can say a sentence like, I like Melbourne. It is cold. Yeah, it's summer here right now, but look at me. I've got a scarf on. Yeah, so but those two sentences were correct, right? I like Melbourne, it is cold, but they're very simple sentences. So we have to try to make them more complex. How? You join them, right? So although I love Melbourne, it tends to be cold. That is a longer, more complex sentence with two parts. So we want to do this as much as we can in the writing. How? So things like although, whereas, however, if you can use if sentences, yeah, that, which, those kinds of sentences make it more complex. Okay, so there's a question about word count. So nowadays, it's important to reach the minimum word count. Why? Because otherwise you don't have enough content and you won't get a good score. In terms of maximum, there's no maximum. You can write as much as you want, but be very careful with the time. So you don't want to write too much because you'll run out of time. Okay, so there is no upper limit. You could write 500 words, but could you do that in time? Also, you will tend to make more mistakes the more words. So, if you can write 300 words in 40 minutes, then that's fine, but you don't have to. Yeah, but the minimum, you must reach the minimum. Okay, all right, so why am I talking about, I'll talk about counting words. It's a great question. I'll talk about counting words a bit later. Okay, so, yes, sorry, I just forgot what I was saying. So when the examiners read your writing, they're thinking about these 4 things. So you've got to always think about these. If you want a 7, you've got to get 7. They mark each of these out of 9. So you need 7 for answering the question, 7 for your structure, 7 for the flow, 7 for the vocab, and 7 for the grammar. And then you get your 7. So that's why quite a lot of people will get 6.5 for writing, because maybe they answered the question well, the structure and the linkers were good, the vocab was good, but the grammar, too many mistakes, not enough complex sentences. So maybe they get a 6 there. So 7, 7, 7, 6 will make 6.5. It's a numbers game. So you need to know what you do well and what you need to work on. Okay, so I know I spent a bit of time on that, but we have to keep thinking about these 4. So we're going to talk about task 1, general first. This will take me about 15 minutes or so. So if you are doing academic, you can chillax for a little while, go and get a snack or have a little lie down, but don't fall asleep. Come back in about 15 minutes. Okay, so general people, please tell me, remind me, what are you writing for your task 1? Can you remember? I know we don't have as many general people here. What are you writing for this task 1 general? A letter, that's right. So it's a bit unusual. We don't really write letters anymore. And how many words are you writing? 150, exactly. And we should spend only 20 minutes because this task 1 is not worth as much. Yeah, so this is what it looks like when you get the letter. So it will always be laid out like this. It will not tell you the tone though. This is just here for today. Okay, so when you get the letter, you need to think about 3 things. You kind of have 3 things you have to look at. So they will always tell you how to start. Yeah, so always just follow that. Do not change it. Remember, IELTS is about following instructions. So dear sir or madam. Yeah, then let's just read the topic and we'll go through the steps. There have been some problems with the public transport in your area recently. Write a letter to the manager of the public transport company. In your letter, describe the problems, explain how these problems are affecting the public, suggest what changes could be made. Okay, so this is how it's laid out. So the first part here is what we call the description. That's what this letter is, the background to this letter. The next bit is your task, what you have to do. Yeah, and then there are the subtasks, so the detailed things that you have to do. So in your letter, you have 3 jobs. Okay, so the first job is to work out your tone. This is very important. If you use the wrong tone, you will lose marks. So here I've told you it's semi-formal, but it won't tell you on the real test. So how do you get the tone? You get it from how you start, dear sir or madam. So when it's dear sir or madam, you don't know them, right? So it's a bit more formal. And also from here, write a letter to the manager of the public transport company. So you get the tone from who you're writing to. Yeah, because you don't know this person and it's a manager. So you know your tone is a bit more formal, but don't be too formal or old-fashioned. Remember, it's like a modern letter. Yeah, you don't have to be overly formal. More like professional. Think about it like professional, like when you write an email to someone you don't know, a bit like that. So that's the first job, your tone. Second job is your purpose. Why are you writing? Your overall purpose, your main purpose. So this is always going to be up here in the description. Usually we can say it with 2. So there have been some problems with public transport in your area. So why are you writing? To do what? Why do you think you're writing? What's your overall purpose? Anyone want to write in the chat box? To raise problems with public transport, something like that. To inform the manager, but about what? About you want to bring up or you want to discuss problems with the public transport in your area. Yes, suggest some improvements. That's part of the purpose, John, but the main purpose is that because you're writing because there are problems with the public transport. The main purpose will be always up here in the top. Now, we also have to look at these. These are our bullet points. How many bullet points? There are always 3. Yeah, but look at them carefully. Describe the problems. So be careful. If there's an S, more than one problem you have to talk about. How the problems are affecting the public and what changes could be made. So we must talk about all these 3. Okay, so once you've got these 3, your tone, your purpose, your bullets, you've looked at the bullets very carefully, then you're ready to write. Yeah, so always remember, your 3 jobs are to find the purpose, then the bullets, and the tone. Okay, so let's look at the model so you see how we put all these pieces together. So remember, we just start dear sir or madam. First paragraph has to contain the purpose. Can you spot the purpose here with the 2? In a more like a semi-formal letter like this, usually we can just say the purpose. So it's here, isn't it? I am writing to draw your attention to recent problems. Yep. And this part I like. You can say who you are, but you don't say your name. So I am a resident of Newtown. You get a bit of background, you give a bit of background, and then say why you're writing. So that's a nice way to start. Now, next paragraph, you see we have separate clear paragraphs. Next paragraph, we say the problems. Remember, more than one. Now, can you spot that the problems have been introduced with a linker? using our nice linking words that we have to use. Can you type the linking words? Briefly, roadworks have led to long delays. Furthermore, new weekend bus timetable has dramatically reduced the frequency. Yeah, so briefly and then furthermore. Remember, we need more than one problem. We need at least two problems. So that's nicely done there. So they're the problems. Our next paragraph was about the effect on the public. Can you see that there's a topic sentence here which tells us what the paragraph is about? The effect of these actions becomes very obvious during peak hours on weekdays and busy shopping hours on Saturday mornings. Now, to reach 150 words, you need to add some of your own ideas. Otherwise, you can't reach 150 words. So that's what they're doing here. But the thing is, very important, it must sound real. Like you would really write this and really send this letter. You shouldn't make up crazy things like, oh, there are ghosts on the bus or something. Don't do that. Make it real. Okay, so the effect on the public, we need two effects, right? Public transport users find it takes 20 minutes more to travel. So that's one. Can you see the linker to introduce the second one? As well. Shoppers who travel by bus on Saturdays to shop in Newtown find it's not worth the trouble, leading to a drastic downturn. Okay, that's the effect on the public. Now, there's some nice vocabulary here as well. So one of the challenges, remember, you have to have interesting vocabulary, but it must sound real, very important. Can you spot some of the nice phrases in this paragraph? There are a couple of nice phrases. Drastic, yeah, drastic downturn. I see, Arif, you're trying to ask me a question. Just write your question in the chat. I will probably see it. You can't see the other comments. Yeah, usually sometimes they're turned off, but I can see your questions, Arif. So please just type away. Okay, so yeah, so that's the second paragraph, right? Talking about the effects. Now we need to think about the suggestions, right? The third bullet point. We must cover all the bullet points. May I suggest that buses be rerouted along Great East Road until roadworks are complete? So that's one suggestion. I would also recommend a return to the old weekend timetable. So there's a second suggestion with the linker also. I'm sure these steps would be warmly welcomed by both users, public transport and local shopkeepers. Okay, so that's our third bullet point. Then the last paragraph in the letter, we point to the next step. What should happen next? So I look forward to hearing from you regarding my suggestions. Then we must sign off, right? Because it's a letter. So dear sir or madam, the matching sign off is yours faithfully. Yeah, they go together. And then don't forget your name because it's a letter. So you must put your name at the bottom. And you have to be careful. So you don't want to sign off cheerio or something. That would sound weird when you have dear sir or madam. You must keep the tone consistent. So that's how we do the letter, really. It usually has 5 paragraphs. So we'll look at some more, don't worry, but you must cover all the bullet points. So look at those bullet points carefully. If you forget one, like maybe you forgot the suggestions, then you'll get 4, band 4. You don't want that for task achievement. You must keep the tone the same. So all of this one is kind of a bit more formal, semi-formal. So the language is like that. Now we don't want to change the tone. If your tone is like weird, like sometimes kind of semi-formal and sometimes too casual, you will get a 5 for task achievement. So how do we do it? Let's go in a little bit more. We're talking about general task 1 right now. After this, I'll talk about academic task 1. So if you're academic, you can chillax for now. You're welcome to listen in, but we'll get to academic after this. How can you use yours sincerely? Yours sincerely, I mean, the kind of the rule is it goes with dear Mr. or Miss. So dear Ms. Smith, then it's yours sincerely. Dear sir or madam is yours faithfully. But it's not really a strict rule. So if you put yours sincerely, it's okay. Do you need a signature? You don't need a signature, but you must put your name at the bottom because it's a letter. Yours respectfully. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, that's okay. but it sounds rather formal. It sounds a bit too formal. It's not the convention. Usually we use yours sincerely with Mr. or Mrs., like when you know their name, but you're using the title. Yeah, yours, if you don't like yours faithfully, you can use yours sincerely. It's totally cool. All right. All right, so it's not to do with religion though. It means faithfully, I'm faithful to you. Okay, so let's go through the steps again. So we have to, just like we did, look for the tone, look for the purpose, look at the bullets very carefully, and then usually we have 5 paragraphs. All right, so let's practice a little bit fixing the purpose, like identifying the purpose. This takes a bit of practice. So if you got this in the task, you want your friend to come to your partner's surprise birthday party. What's our purpose? To invite. Yes, exactly. Yep, great. Now, so this purpose, what about this purpose? You recently stayed in a hotel and the service was unsatisfactory. What's our purpose there? So it's really good to train yourself to identify the purpose. Yeah, so why are you writing? Maybe to complain, yeah? You have to be careful about complaining because you have to imagine you would really send the letter. So you can't be too crazy with your complaining. So maybe it's complaining or expressing disappointment or giving feedback. Yes, that's also a good way to look at it. Great. So we have to practice identifying the purpose, and then we have to think about the tone. So remember with the invitation, we're just inviting someone. Now, what do you think about the tone? Who are we writing to? We're writing to a friend, aren't we? Dear Anne, I request the pleasure of your attendance at the birthday party that I will host for my longtime partner. I would very much appreciate it if you could keep this invitation a secret. What do you think about the tone for this? How's this tone? What do you reckon? Yeah, is it okay for this purpose? The purpose is to invite your friend. It's too buttoned up. I like that. It's too formal for a friend. If this was an invitation to a very formal occasion, maybe, but for this kind of letter, it's too formal. So have a look at this one and see if you can feel the difference in the tone. Dear Anne, I hope all is well. I'm not sure if you remember, but Danny's big birthday is around the corner. Yes, he's going to hit the big 40. He says he doesn't want a party, but that's too bad because I'm hoping you'll be part of a super secret surprise bash I'm organizing for him. Can you notice, can you see that the difference in the tone? You can, right? So this second one sounds like it's someone talking. That's how it should sound for the informal letter. So can you notice this? I'm, he's. For the informal letter, you can do this. We call it contraction. So the secret, if you get an informal letter, is to write it like you're speaking. Okay, this is not the case for the semi-formal one, but if it's an informal letter, write like you're speaking. Yeah, okay, and you can use things like idioms here. A bash, it's not really like hitting. A bash is another word for a party. Now let's have a look at this one. What do you think about this tone? This is for the complaining purpose. I'm very sorry about this, but I really do have to complain about the service I received at your hotel last week. What do you think about that tone? No, this webinar is for everybody, not just general, but we're talking about general task 1 right now. We'll talk about academic task 1 next, so hang on. Yeah, what's wrong with this tone? It needs to be more assertive, Audrey. I totally agree with you. It's too apologetic. So look at this instead. I am writing to express my disappointment about the service I received during my stay at your hotel last week. Can you see that that is more formal, more detached, cold, and really expressing the disappointment? You don't have to be apologetic when you have bad service. Yeah, so be careful with your tone. All right, so let's have a look at another topic. So let's do our 3 things. You think you left your briefcase on the train yesterday morning. Write a letter to the lost property office. In the letter, describe what the briefcase looked like and what was in it. Explain where you think you left it. Say what you want the lost property office to do. So let's do our 3 steps. What's the tone? write the letter to the lost property office? What's our tone going to be? Yeah, more formal, like professional. Now, what's our purpose? Why are we writing? The purpose, you can always get it from up here. Why are we writing? To do what? To seek help. Very nice, Ivy. To inquire. Yep, exactly. Now we have to look at our bullets. Describe what it looked like and what was in it. Be careful when there's an and. You've got to do both those parts. What it looked like and what was in it, where you left it, and what you want the lost property office to do. Okay, now have a look at this one. Can you see now with the letter, each bullet point should have an equal amount of information. There shouldn't be a lot on one of the bullet points and just a little bit on another one. Each should be equal. So if you have a quick read of this, do you think it has equal about the 3 bullet points? I would like to inform you that I have lost my briefcase. That's correct. Yes, that is correct. Yep. Yeah, it's not equal amount on each, right? So let's have a look. So remember the bullet points, what it looked like and what was in it, where it was left and what you want them to do. So which of those bullet points doesn't have enough? So for each bullet point, you can have 1 paragraph. That's how we usually do it. So it has 5 paragraphs, but you can combine them in 1 paragraph if you want to. Yeah, so let's have a look. So the first bullet point, I'm writing to ask whether you have had a black leather briefcase handed in. It has a silver buckle, so they're describing what it looks like, and name tag. Yep, I think I left it on the 7 o'clock train, so they're describing that, so that's good. It's very important for me to get it back because it contains all my college assignments. So here they're talking about what was in it. So they split that up, but that's okay. Apart from my assignment, there were 2 CDs, It is my hope that the briefcase be returned to its rightful owner. Yes, exactly, Ivy. This last bullet point about what should be done, it's a bit short. It's a bit unclear. You should probably say more about how to return it, how to contact you, that kind of thing. Okay, there's a question, how many sentences for each bullet point? It's not like that. It's not like the examiner says 1, 2, 3 sentences. It's just making sure you have enough and it's basically equal for each bullet point. It's not about number of sentences. And you must also hit the words, the minimum. How many words? 150, right? Yeah. This one didn't reach 150? Maybe not, but this is just an example. So you don't have to get too over the top. All right, so sometimes because people want to hit their 150, they add unnecessary information, redundant, and it sounds silly. Remember, it's got to sound real, like you would really send the letter. So what's wrong with this one? There's some really unnecessary information which makes it sound weird. Have a little read and tell me what's weird. So this is like an application letter. I would like to apply for the position of part-time sales assistant advertising Saturday's Daily Planet right next to the article on talking to your plants. I'm currently studying literature at the University of Tasmania. I chose to study literature because I love books. My favorite book is Lord of the Rings, and I would certainly recommend this. Yes, so this part about the talking to your plants, that's really unnecessary, right? Would you really write that in an application letter? No. And maybe this part about your favorite books is a bit too much, right? So keep it real. Yeah, good. So careful with unnecessary information. Now let's look at this type. Let's do our 3 things again. You're going on holiday and would like to ask a friend to look after your house. Write a letter to your friend. Explain the situation. Tell your friend what needs to be done while you're away. Arrange to meet your friend. Begin your letter, dear ... So what's our tone? Let's think about our 3 things. Yes, Daryl, fanboying about the love of the Lord of the Rings is not necessary in that letter, definitely. Informal, yes. So when we've got ... just put a name. Any old name is fine, but not Mr. Tan, right? Not if it's to a friend. Okay, so, and write a letter to our friend. So we know the tone is informal. Now, what's our purpose? So here's the purpose, should be up here at the top. Why are we writing the letter? Why are we writing to our friend? Yes, to request something. Dear buddy. Yeah, you could write dear buddy if you want to. That's okay. Yeah, we want to ask for a favor, don't we? Yep. And then let's look at the bullets. So explain what needs to be done and arrange to meet. It's quite a straightforward letter, this one. So let's have a look. Now, when you have the informal letter, be careful about the purpose. Because, so we've got Dear Jane. If you just say, Dear Jane, I am writing to ask you for a favor, it sounds too blunt. Like if you think about it, when you really, actually we wouldn't write a letter to our friend, would we? This is why the letter is a little bit strange. We would send a WhatsApp, right? Or we'd call them, but we have to write the letter. But don't be too blunt when it's a friend. When you want to put the purpose in an informal letter, you have to kind of go around, right? So you can put a greeting. How is everything? I hope you're having a great week. Remember it, write it like you're talking. As you know, I'm heading off to England next Monday for 3 glorious weeks. I'm wondering if you might be free to do me a huge favor while I'm away. Can you see, like we're just building up to the purpose. I'd be super grateful if you could look after the house. I really need to get away because I haven't had a break for almost a year. Most of us haven't had a break for 2 years, have we? Okay, so can you see the tone? Yeah, now the trick too is you've got to try to get in nice vocabulary, but it needs to sound real. So just a few examples here, like, can you check my plants and give them a drink if they're looking droopy or parched? Yeah. We could grab a bite to eat. So in the informal letter, you can use these idioms. It's fine. My treat, of course. Yeah. And then pointing to the next, what happens next? Could you give me a call to let me know if this won't be too much of a hassle? Can you see it sounds like the person's talking? Then the sign off, remember it should match. So Dear Jane, the sign off should not be yours sincerely, right? So cheers, I like cheers because I'm Australian and we like a beer. But if you don't want to use cheers, no worries. You can use bye for now, see you soon, lots of love. Any of those are fine. Best regards is a bit formal, Serge, for a friend in a Western context. Remember, you are writing this imagining that you're in England or Canada or New Zealand. People are not so formal, and best regards is a bit formal for a friend. If my friend said best regards, I would think they were angry with me. So bye for now, see you soon, lots of love, many thanks. Also a little bit formal for a friend. It's okay, it's okay. Yes, really, really, really. But if that was the only thing you did in the letter, it would be fine. But best regards is a little bit formal for friends. It's what we use for email when we know the person, like a client that's kind of, that we know well, right? I remain is way too formal for a friend. So don't be old-fashioned. When you write to your friend, write like you're talking. Would you say to anybody, I remain yours? No, right? So, okay. Okay, good. All right, so we better keep going. And don't forget your name because it's a letter. All right, so just some tips because we've got to move on and talk about academic. Yes, oh, one more thing, yes. So we've done a lot of talking now about analyzing, making sure we're answering the question and the structure. Now, of course, we have to think about the vocab and the grammar. Okay, so yeah, so see if you can spot these mistakes. There could be some spelling or there could be some grammar mistakes here. Can you spot them? Unfortunately, many of us have bad spelling these days and there's no spell check. So we do need to train ourselves with our spelling. Can you type the mistakes? Used, yes, past tense, used. There's some other mistakes. There should be the place there. There's one more, accommodation. Yes, it's a very hard word to spell. Okay, let's look at one more. Can you spot? Yes, spelling, separate, hard word to spell. There's one more. Yes, very good. Separate and maintenance. Great. Now, if you know your spelling sucks, what I recommend you do is go on Google Play or the App Store, look for some spelling practice apps. You could even look for IELTS spelling. And there'll be like games and exercises. So because spelling is a skill that you just have to train. You have to drill it. Yeah, so that's what I suggest. All right, so let's move on. Now, just some overall tips for your general writing task 1. So you have to do that analysis that we've been doing. Tone, purpose, bullets. Carefully look at the bullets. Are there any plurals? Problems? Then you have to have more than one. The purpose is always in the first paragraph. You need paragraphs, usually 5 paragraphs in the letter. Last paragraph, we point to the future. Yes, always work out the tone. So don't be too formal. Yeah, and when it's more formal letter, like professional, think like professional. Try not to copy the words in the topic. Use your own words. Just start how it says. So if it says, dear sir or madam, just start like that. Don't change it. You don't need to put an address. You just start, dear Jane or dear sir or madam. And the opening and the closing need to match. Okay, so that is your general task 1. Do we have the poll? Just to see if, like a little quiz. Oh, there we go. See if you can remember what we just covered. Can I return to the previous slide? Okay. Okay, how come I can't return to the previous slide? Is it this one? Okay. Previous. Oh, it was going to take a while to go back. Ayo. Yes, so I'm going to, let's see, 65. Okay, I'll give you a little bit longer to answer the poll. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so I'm just going to end the poll just because of time, because we're going to run out of time. Let's have a look. So which 3 things must you think about? Purpose, tone, and all the bullet points. Yes, now British spelling, you can use American or British. Both are fine because it's international English. Try not to mix both in one letter, but you can use either. You don't have to use long sentences. If you can use long sentences and they're correct, that is okay, but it's not necessary. Can you use texting language like lol? No, okay? You must use proper English words. You must also write in full sentences. So never use bullet points. I know we do that in email, but don't do it in this letter. Must be full, complete sentences. And you should use really formal words to impress the examiner. No, don't do that. Remember I told you it must sound natural. Don't use really old-fashioned formal language that we don't use. Yeah, it should just sound professional and natural. Okay, great. Okay. In terms of the slides, we do not share the slides. Maybe the other, my other supporters, my colleagues can let you know about recording. I'm not sure if this is being recorded or not, but you can take screenshots if you wish. All right, so that's general. Now, academic, general people, you can have a little rest for about 15 minutes or so. Academic, it's your turn. So yes, please come back though, Jasper. We still have to talk about task 2, the more important part. Now, academic people, what are you doing for your task 1? Please tell me. You remember? Bars. Put you behind bars. No, just kidding. Charts and graphs. Yes, we're describing something in words. Yes, how many words and how long do you have? Summarizing information. You are totally right. 150 words, 20 minutes. Yeah, so task 1 academic is all about taking something visual, like a graph, a chart, a table, and describing it in words. So it is a little bit challenging. It takes a while to get to learn it. My advice here is start slow. Don't force yourself to write it in 20 minutes at the start. Learn how to do it properly and then build up your speed. Okay, so I'm going to try to show you a step-by-step way to do it. So when you get it, it looks like this. So it will tell you have 20 minutes. You will have something that you have to describe. Sometimes it's 2 things. Don't worry if it's 2 things. It's fine. It's the same method. Okay, so this part here is always the same. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. So your job is to pull out the main details and then summarize it. Summarize everything and compare. So you always have to do this, okay? Pull out the main things, summarize and compare. My voice is breaking. Better have a drink. Okay, now we have to read what we're dealing with, right? The charts show the number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad between 1985 and 1995 and Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market. Okay, so we're dealing with Japanese tourists. Now, I'm always ask myself some questions, so I stay focused. The first question I ask is, are we dealing with the past? Usually these are about the past. Is this one about the past? Yes, right? Yes, and 1985 to 1995. Now we have to spend some time analyzing what we're dealing with so we can pull out the main features. So here we have Japanese tourists traveling abroad. First thing to do is to look at the axes. So we have vertical, number in millions. So be careful, it's not 246, it's 2 million, 4 million, 6 million. And we have our years. Again, I asked myself some questions. My first question is, overall, is this graph here, the first one, is it going up or is it going down? Up or down? Up, yeah. Overall, it's increasing, right? Now we have to look in detail. So we always look, for this kind of graph, we always look at the start. Where are we at the start? Maybe about, you can use approximately 5 million Japanese tourists going overseas, right? Then we look at the end. Oh, where are we at the end? Way up here, we're at just under 16 million, yeah. Now, then we also have to look at the peak. Where is the peak in this one? The highest point. Which year? Which year is the peak? Yes, it's the end in this case. Okay, now we also have to pick out anything else that's interesting. So when it just increases like this, we do not have to talk about each year. In fact, you should not do that. But where it changes, we need to note that. We need to highlight that. So can you see where there's a change? Yes, we would probably want to talk about this because it's a change in the trend. Yeah, this drop. Good. So we know what we're going to talk about with this graph. Now we look at this one. Australia's share. So how many are going to Australia? So here again, we have vertical percent. So be careful. It's not million now, it's percent and the year. So again, overall, is it up or down? For this one, up or down? Pretty much up, yeah. So we start out very low, right? Just 2% going to Australia. What about at the end? Where are we up to? We're up to, oh yeah, maybe just under 6% at the end. And where's the peak? Which year is the peak? Yeah, 1994 is the highest point. It's not the end, okay? So we're going to want to talk about this change. So we want to mention the peak, 1994, that's 6%. Any other year that's important that we want to highlight here, where the trend changed? Yes, we want to go talk about this. Yeah, so good. This is what you should always do. Pick out the important data points that we're going to talk about. Now we have to start writing because we only have 20 minutes, right? So again, we have 3 jobs, a bit like the general. We have to have an introduction. We have to have all the information with all the features with lots of numbers. And then we have to have what we call an overview. Okay, so let's go step by step. The introduction, the fastest way to write the introduction is to just rewrite the topic, change as many words as you can. Never copy the topic. Why? Because it's not your words. So you have to change the words. So here, the chart and graph show, compare the number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad, the number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas. Yeah, so see what we've just rewritten the topic. That's the fastest way to do your introduction. Next, we have to put the overview. So the overview, I'll read it to you. Overall, usually we start with overall or in general. Overall, despite the relatively small proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia, the Japanese tourist market corresponded closely with the growth in Japanese tourism overseas generally, with a trebling of both in the 10-year period. Yeah, so can you see any actual numbers here? Any data? None, right? Yeah, there's none. The overview should have no actual data, just the trends without any numbers. Yeah, so usually one or maybe two sentences. So just describing everything with no numbers. You must have this in the task one. Good. So I saw someone wrote something. The charts illustrate the comparison between rates of tourism in two countries. Yeah, but you would probably want to say which countries. It's okay to say that because we know it's not the rates of tourism in two countries though, is it? It's the Japanese tourists going overseas generally and Japanese tourists going to Australia. It's not Australian tourists. So be a bit careful how you describe it. You have to be very precise. Okay, so we've done our introduction, we've done our overview. Now we have to describe everything with lots of numbers, lots and lots of numbers. So actually the examiner could read what you wrote and draw it. Okay, but you don't have to mention everything, like I said, just the main trends. So let's see how it's done. So when you get two things like this, the easiest way is just describe one and then describe the other one. It gets too confusing if you try to describe across, you'll get in a mess. So just describe one and then describe another one. So let's have a look. In 1985, only about 5 million Japanese traveled abroad, after which the number increased steadily. By 1990, the figure had more than doubled to 11 million, apart from a slight drop the following year to approximately 10 million, the upward trend continued until the end of the period when numbers reached over 15 million. So can you see that this paragraph describes everything important that happened here? The start, the end, the change. Okay, I want to highlight a couple of things. So notice this increased steadily. We could just say increased, but it's very good for your vocabulary to describe how it increased. Increased steadily, increased noticeably, yeah, to use these kinds of words. And then you say what it went to, okay? It more than doubled. So we don't just say more than doubled. It more than doubled to 11 million. Yeah, there was a slight drop. So again, we're describing the kind of drop, a slight drop to 10 million. Yeah, so can you see that we're including the numbers? Now there's one more job that we haven't looked at. Remember, I said you also had to include comparisons. Can you see any phrases in this first paragraph where we're comparing how it was before and how it was later? There are some nice comparing words. Can you use increase moderately? You can, but is from 4 million, from 4 million to, is it moderately or was it more than moderately? Moderately is just a little bit. Yeah, apart from, that's right. Apart from, after which is a comparing phrase and apart from is a comparing phrase. Yeah, we're comparing before and after. So you must include this comparing language as well. Good. Now let's look at this one. While Australia was the destination for under 2% of Japanese tourists in 1985, this percentage had risen to over 6% by 1994. The proportion grew consistently. Oh, that's a nice vocabulary. Apart from a slight fall in 1990, 4.5% to 4%. After reaching its 1994 peak, the percentage declined marginally to 6% in 1995. So you can see again, we're describing all the main trends. Nice vocabulary, declined marginally, slight fall, yeah, increased, grew consistently, very nice. And lots of numbers, 2, 6. So the examiner could actually draw it out. And can you spot the comparing language? The whole paragraph starts with a comparing word. While, yeah. So this is good comparing language to use. While, whereas, in comparison, in contrast, apart from as well. So again, okay. So let's have a look at the whole thing. So we have the introduction. We describe everything. Just rewrite the topic, paraphrase the topic. Then the overview. You can use brackets. Yeah, you can use brackets like here. That's fine. Then the overview, no numbers, just describing the main trends with no numbers. Yeah. Then we have described the first graph in detail with comparing language, and then the second graph. Okay, so that's kind of how you do it. But sometimes we don't get a graph. It's often a graph, very common that you have a graph, but sometimes you get a table. Oh my goodness, what do we do? Don't panic. It's the same technique. We always have this part. It's always the same. Summarize the information, select and report main features and compare. Do you need a conclusion? Good question. In the task 1 academic, you do not need a conclusion unless you need more words, unless you haven't reached 150 words, because the overview is like a conclusion. Some people put the overview at the end. That's also okay. Yeah, but you don't need a conclusion. All right, so let's have a look. What do you do when you get a table? It's kind of the same, so don't panic. The table shows the percentage of students who attended different types of secondary schools between 2000 and 2009. Okay, so are we talking about the past? Yes, past. You can't see the screen? Can anyone else not see the screen? Are you on Ananya, are you on a phone? Sometimes if you're on a phone, it's hard to see, you can't see. Yeah, you can all see it. Okay, I'm not sure why you can't see it. Okay, good, good, thank you. All right. So what do we do? Same thing, we have to spend a couple of minutes. Is the overview always without any numbers? Yes, the overview should just be the main trends without data, without actual data. You can say like it's over 10 years or something like that, but not each like 1995 to 2005. Okay, so we need to analyze what's going on. When we get a table, you're looking for the things that are the same and the things that are different. So let's work it out. We've got specialist schools. So we've got 3 years, 2000, 2005, 2009. What happened to specialist schools, up or down? Just a tiny fall, right? Just tiny, 12% to 10%. Grammar schools, what happened? Oh dear. Now we could say it went from 24% to 12%. That's fine. But what's another more interesting way to describe this drop? What happened to it? It was a drastic fall. But it was also in terms of maths, use a bit of maths. It dropped by half, exactly. But we would need to say from what? It started with 24% and dropped by half. Then we know it's 12. Okay, volunteer schools, what happened? Oh my goodness, huge drop. Like, yes, a huge decline. Almost, how many times? A lot, a huge amount, yes. More than half. And then community schools, what happened? On the other hand, it grew almost 6 times, didn't it? 12 to 58. Okay, so how did you get 1985 year in the graph? I'm sorry, Joyce, how did you get 1985 year in the graph? Didn't it start in 1985? Wasn't that the period? It was in the bottom on the horizontal axis. All the years were there. Is that what you're asking me? Yeah. Okay. So what we have to do with the table is we have to join it, work out which are the same. So we have 3 that are going down and one that's going up. So this is going to help us organize our writing. So logically, we will talk about the three that are the similar and the one that's different. They always create it like that, so you can find a pattern. It's always like that. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, Iris, I don't really want to, we're going to run out of time. So if I just quickly go back. See, the years are here. This is how you know it's 1985 to 1995. It's on the graph. Yeah, it's there. It's on the graph. That's how you know it's those years. Okay. All right, so let's have a look at the model. So once again, the table illustrates, so we rewrite the topic in our own words. Same thing. Table illustrates percentage of school children attending 4 different types of secondary school. Now our overview. In general, we can see, remember no numbers. In general, we can see specialist grammar and voluntary controlled experience declines. Whereas, remember comparing language, community schools became the largest providers. So no actual numbers here, just describing the main trends. Now, next paragraph, we talk about the 3 that dropped, right? To begin, the proportion in voluntary control fell from just over half to only 20%, right? Oh, voluntary control. Yeah, just over half is 52 to 20%. Similarly, so here's another comparing word, relative number of children in grammar schools, which was just under a quarter. It's a nice way to describe this, isn't it? Dropped by half in the same period. As for specialist schools, the relatively small percentage of pupils attending this type of school, which was 12%, also fell, but not significantly. Yeah, just 2%. Now we have to talk about the other one, right? However, comparing word, while another comparing word, the other 3 types of school declined in importance. The opposite was true of community schools. In fact, while only a small minority of 12% were educated in these schools, in 2000, this figure increased to well over half of all the pupils. Okay, so we're just describing everything. And it's just over 150. So we reached 170. So that's often quite a good length there. Okay, so one more. Can you use the symbol? Yes, you can use the percentage symbol if you prefer. But if you say percent as a word, that's counted as a word. So up to you. All right, so sometimes you get this. This is what we call a process. Now, people often panic about a process, but I actually think it's easier to do because all you need to do is describe what. Oh, I've got a question here. What's the difference between an overview and a conclusion, or is it the same? Yeah, so you can use the overview like a conclusion if you prefer. You can have the overview at the end like a conclusion if you want to do that. But if you prefer, you can put the overview second or, after the introduction. Then you don't need a conclusion for task 1. Yeah, up to you. All right. So, okay, let's look at the process. So all you have to do with the process is describe everything that's going on. And it's in sequence. A process is in sequence. Yeah, you just want to try to change the form of the words so you're not actually always copying the words. So people always ask, like, how do you do the overview? It's easy. But we do need to spend a bit of time working out what's going on. Okay, so let's have a look. Brick manufacturing. So the digger digs up the clay. We go over here. It goes shaken through a metal grid onto a roller here. Then from here, sand and water are added. Then there's 2 options. Wire cutter can make bricks, or it goes into a mold and makes bricks. You can label this as steps. Yep, no problem. Then you go to a drying oven, 24 to 48 hours. So, I mean, that's okay, but we can change this, right? We can use a synonym, a word that means the same thing. We can say what? 24 to 48 hours is 1 to 2 days, isn't it? Yes, exactly. So then we go to the kiln where it's heated, moderate at this temperature, high this temperature, cooling again, this amount of time, packaged, and delivered. So this is what we're going to want to describe. Now, to do the introduction, again, you just rewrite the topic in your own words. Overview is quite easy. You count how many steps approximately. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, approximately 7 steps, beginning with digging up the clay, ending with delivery. We can say a bit about whether it's a complex process or whether it's like a simple process, something like that for your overview. Let's have a look. So this one, you'll notice they put the overall overview at the end. So you can do that if you prefer. The diagram outlines how bricks are manufactured from extraction of raw clay to delivery of bricks. The process involves clearly defined steps. First, the clay is extracted from a quarry with a large digger, then refined by separating larger pieces from smaller ones using the metal grid. It's important that you mention everything that's on the process diagram. The refined clay is conveyed via a belt on rollers to be mixed with sand and water. The resulting mixture is molded into bricks either through extrusion and cutting or using a brick mold. Notice we use a lot of this passive: is molded, is conveyed, is extracted. Yeah, we use a lot of passive in the process. These fresh bricks are dried in a drying oven for between 24 to 48 hours. They are then transferred to a kiln for firing at a moderate temperature and then a higher temperature. After cooling in a cooling chamber, finished bricks are packed and transported. Overall, brick making process comprises 7 steps, involve different processes: refining and forming the clay, drying the clay, and firing the bricks. So we kind of overall say what it's about. So the process is not that hard. Someone was asking about maps. It doesn't affect the score whether you put the overview second or last. Totally fine either way. Someone's asking about maps. Now, maps don't come up that often. If you get a map, look for the things. Usually they have 2 maps. One is like earlier and one is later. Or one is before renovation and one is after renovation. So look for the things that are the same and the things that have changed and work out how you're going to group them. And again, you have to mention everything on the map. And the overview will be, you know, overall, these things changed and these things stayed the same. Pie chart, it's similar to the table, actually. You think about a pie chart, it's just like a table in a different form. So you have to work out like how things changed and how you're going to group the information. Yeah. So really with the academic task 1, just describe what you see and use these steps. For the diagram, you use the past tense. It depends. That's why I asked you to look at the year. If it's talking about the past, then of course we use the past tense. If it's talking about what will happen in the future, be careful because it hasn't happened yet. So you have to guess, this might happen. So always look at the time. It's a good question. All right, so let's summarize some points. So you've got to hit your 150. I'll talk about counting words a bit later. You must have that overview. Spend that time pulling out what's important. When you are describing a graph, you've got to have lots of data in the main description so the examiner could draw it. Remember to compare: whereas, however, whereas, however, while, all of those. And these comparing words also make it flow, like linking words. Usually in the task 1, we can have 3 or 4 paragraphs. Checking for mistakes, I will talk a bit more about later on. Now, some things that people do in the task 1, they forget to have the numbers. So they just say it increased, it decreased. No, you must have from what to what. And remember, say how it increased. It increased steadily. It increased dramatically. We never interpret. Okay, so you will never say, I think more people are going to community schools because they're becoming hippies and they all want to, they don't want to study hard. Never do that. We never say why. We just describe what we see. No opinions in the task 1. No opinions. Just describe. You don't have to describe every single thing, right, in the graph, but just where it changes. But in the process, you need to mention everything. And you must have your overview, either second or last. Okay, so your task 1 academic, it does take a little while to get used to it. Can we have the poll? Let's do a little review. Is it there? Or maybe I don't have one. Oh, I do. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it takes a while to get used to it. Okay, but please just take your time. Build up the skills slowly. Also with task 1 academic, it's very good to look at models like we have been doing. So you learn the style, the structure, the way to write it. Yeah. There's a question here. There will be 2 contradicting sides of information. We have to describe them. It's not always contradicting sides of information. Sometimes you just describe what you see, but usually you can find patterns, things that you can group together, some that are the same and some that are different. It's usually like that. The most important thing is you describe what you see, and you have to work out how to organize it. So you need your overview, yes, at the either second, you need an introduction first, describing what's going on, and then the overview. That's right. Okay, good. So let's have a look at what you did for the poll. Which should you not include? That's right. Do not interpret. Do not say why it's happening. It's not what you do in the task 1 academic. You need an overview. You must have the overview, no data. You must have the introduction to start, rewrite the topic, and you've got to cover all the important information. You have to cover every piece of data? No, just the main trends in the graph. Yeah, where it changes. Should you have a conclusion? Yeah, it's optional, but you don't actually need one as long as you have your overview. Okay, good. Great. So let's more of descriptive writing. Yes, you're just describing what you see. In the process, do you need to do comparison? Good question, Glyn. In the process, because you're saying after this, subsequently, that's comparing, isn't it? Before and after. So that becomes your comparing. Good question. Let's go on and talk about task 2 now, because this is the more important part. Task 2, we're going to talk about it together, because even though the topics are different for academic and general, the method or the technique is the same. So this is worth 66%. So do not get stuck on your task 1. Do your task 1, make sure you do it properly, and then move on. So yeah, some people like to do task 2 first. You can do it first. I personally don't prefer that, because I like to do task 1 and get it over, then focus on task 2. Because a lot of people, if they start with task 2, they run out of time for their task 1, and then they do a very bad task 1, and they lose marks overall, because you must do both tasks. So I think for me personally, I prefer to do task 1 first and then focus on task 2. But you can't spend too long on task 1. You have to be disciplined. But it's up to you. If you want to do task 2 first, you can. For task 1, I would not use to conclude. Because the examiner is looking for you to say overall or in general. Make it easy for the examiner. Start your overview, use overall or in general to help the examiner. Is there a timer? Okay, so let's talk about timing. When you do your test on the computer, there's a timer on your computer counting down. If you do paper-based, there is a clock or some kind of timer in the room, so you can keep track of the time. And you must manage the time. Nobody tells you, okay, move on to task 2. You have to manage your 1 hour. Yes, computer-based training, you can do task 2 first if you prefer. Yes, completely. Okay, also paper-based. All right, so can you bring a watch? No, there's no watch. All the clocks and time devices will be in the room provided for you, because now there are too many camera watches. Right, let's just quickly review what the examiner is looking at. Remember, they're looking at, for task 2, the task response. Did you answer the question? Did you have good reasons and examples? Remember cohesion and coherence, paragraphs, linkers? Yeah, good. Welcome back, Jasper. Yes, we're starting task 2. Lexical resource, your vocab and your grammar. Okay, so same thing. We have to keep thinking about these 4. Now, when you get your task 1 topic, it's usually divided into these 2 parts. The topic, what you're talking about, and your instructions. Remember, the big secret in IELTS for every single test, follow the instructions, okay? So this is very important for the essay. So here's an example. So we've got, I'll just read it to you. International tourism has brought enormous benefits to many places. At the same time, there is concern about its impact on local inhabitants and the environment. Do the disadvantages of international tourism outweigh the advantages? Okay, so we have the topic. So we're talking about international tourism. And then we have our instructions. Do the disadvantages of tourism outweigh the advantages? Okay, so always remember that it's divided like this. Let's look at another one. In many countries, very few young people follow the news. So that's your topic. Very few young people are following the news. What do you think are the causes of this? What can you suggest to encourage more young people to follow the news? Now, how many things do you have to do in this essay? So here are your questions. How many questions do you have? 2. Yeah, so this essay, you have to do 2 things. Just follow the instructions. So first you have to talk about the reasons why young people don't follow the news. What are the reasons? And then you have to give suggestions. How could you encourage more young people to follow the news? That's your job. Just follow the instructions. Okay. All right. The other job you have in the essay, this is always the same, every single essay. You have to give reasons and examples. Every essay must include reasons and examples. And these examples can be from your own knowledge, what you know, or your experience. This is why it's good every time I say the same thing. Please start following the news. This will help you also with your speaking. Yeah, just so it will give you ideas, it will give you examples. It's so easy to follow the news now. We have so many apps, right? BBC app, Guardian app, Voice of America app. Yeah, it's so easy. And we have to have at least 250 words. Will you have a high band if your examples are based on your own experience? It's still okay, yeah, as long as they're relevant. It depends what kind of reason you give. Is it on topic? Does your example support your reason? That's the most important thing. Okay, can you use examples from research? Do you really know about the research? You can, but some people like to give fake statistics, like 22% of people. Actually, the examiners know that you just made that up, and it's weird. You don't have to do that. It's strange. I wouldn't do that. What if you make exactly 250 words? That's okay. 250 words is the minimum. Yeah, so that's okay. It is kind of good to try to write about 20 extra words at least. You know, some people can write 350 words, and that it probably will give you more. It will make your essay a bit stronger, but you don't have to. You know, the minimum is 250. Okay, so remember the examiner's looking at 4 things. So this first one is to analyze the question. Will the score be affected if there's lots of rubbing out? No, they don't mark you on your writing or crossing out or drawing arrows. No problem with that, as long as it's legible. It's a made-up story. Okay, so in the essay, we don't tell stories because it's only 250 words. Your example needs to support your reason. I'll show you this in a minute. So careful with stories. Brainstorm, we're going to talk about that in a minute too. Okay. Now, it's very important to answer the question. Okay. I keep saying this, follow the instructions. Remember we saw this one before? In many countries, very few young people follow the news. What do you think are the causes? What can you suggest to encourage more young people to follow the news? Now, we can criticize the writing here. It's not the right tone and it's not written properly for the essay. But what is the main problem with this? It is not true that people don't read newspapers or watch the news on TV. In my country, most people spend time finding out about the news. Why do I say so? Because I see newspapers everywhere. If people don't buy newspapers, why does its publication continue? What's wrong with this? Yes, Christian, it's not answering the question. Did this, see, we got two things we have to do here. What are the causes and what can you suggest? Did it ask you for your opinion? Did it ask you, do you agree or disagree? Sometimes it does, but not here. Please just follow the instructions. This will get a bad mark. I mean, it's not very well written also, but you didn't, it's off topic, not answering the question. So please be careful. Okay, it didn't ask you your opinion. It just asked you for the reasons and the suggestions. Okay, so be really careful. Now, this is my favorite slide. Feel free to take a screenshot. The next thing we do is after the instructions down here at the second part is very important because it will give us our structure. Remember, structure comes under cohesion and coherence. Yeah, so see, we saw this one before. Do the disadvantages of international tourism outweigh the advantages? They were our instructions, weren't they? So then we see suggested structure. We have an introduction and your position. We have the advantages. We have the disadvantages and conclusion. Are you asking, is it appropriate to use an interrogative? Do you mean like a question in your intro? I don't like that personally. It's not wrong to put a rhetorical question, but I don't really like it myself. But if you love doing that, it's okay. Yeah, it's not wrong. Yeah, I don't really like it because the examiner's not gonna, I don't know. I don't like it, but it's not, you will not get marked down for it necessarily. It also depends what band score you need. If you're going for a 7 or something like that, then it's okay. Okay, so here are some of the other kinds of instructions. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? That's another very common type. So then we have, this is a suggested structure. Your introduction and your position, I think, is important. The reason why you agree, another reason. Remember, reasons and examples, considering the other side, and conclusion. And here's a different type, both views and give your own opinion. Introduction, view 1, view 2, your opinion, conclusion. So can you see that the instructions part, it gives you your essay structure. Here's another one. This is a bit like the one that we talked about with the news. Why is this so? Give reasons or solutions, or in our case with suggestions. Introduction, reason why it's so, another reason, solution, conclusion. Some teachers tell me there should be 2 sentences in the introduction. It's not about the number of sentences. A paragraph should actually not have 1 sentence. Yeah, ideally. So a paragraph should have more than 1 sentence in it, but they don't count the number of sentences. The examiners don't do that. Maybe they say that, your teachers say that so that you just don't have 1 sentence in a paragraph. Okay, so this is another type. Why is it so? What effect on individual and society? Yeah, so here we've got introduction. Why is it so? Effect on individual, effect on society, conclusion. So I want you to notice that the instructions will give you your essay structure. Yeah, so let's have a look at another type. Okay, we're going to talk about agree and disagree in a minute, so I'm going to talk about that. Okay, counting the number of words. Yeah, I'm going to come to that in a minute too. Okay, so I won't forget. Now let's have a look at this type. So see this, these are our instructions. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Okay, let's have a look. Some people think wild animals should not be kept in zoos. Others believe that there are good reasons for having zoos. Discuss both these views and give your own opinion. How many things should we do in this essay? Three, yes, very good. So what are the 3? both views. So view 1, view 2, and your opinion. We must do that in this essay. Now, just one little tip. View 1 is always introduced with some. Some people think wild animals should not be in zoos. So some people think wild animals free or not in a zoo. View 2 is others, is always others. Others think, no, zoos can be important. Now, the third thing is your opinion. What do you actually think? So sometimes it's a mixture. Often it is a mixture. Like, you know, often you think, well, zoos can be good for some things and bad for other things, and that's fine. Yep, so view 1, view 2, and your opinion. So I'm going to show you a model for this. Oh, here's the structure first. So yeah, so we'll have the introduction, and then you can briefly state your opinion in the introduction, but no reasons. Then you give view 1, reasons and examples. Remember, we always have to give reasons and examples. View 2, reasons and examples. Your opinion with reasons and examples, and conclusion. If they don't ask your opinion, can you still give it? No, don't do that. I just told you not to do that. If they don't ask for your opinion, don't give your opinion or you will lose marks. Just follow the instructions. Yeah. All right. So here's a model. This one got a band 7. So I wanted to show you kind of what a 7 looks like, just so you can see. So why is it a 7? 7 means good in IELTS. So there are lots of good things about this essay, but it's not perfect. If you look carefully, there are grammar mistakes, there are spelling mistakes. Some of the reasons are not fully expanded. But this is what a band 7 looks like. I want to point out the second thing the examiner is looking at, your structure. So this essay has a nice structure. So it has an introduction. So talking in general about zoos. Wild animals are kept in zoos. At present, zoos are a tourist attraction. And then it has the opinion. I believe wild animals should not be kept in zoos, but they don't give any reasons. Then we talk about the view 1, except actually this person's talking about view 2 first. That's okay. There are many good reasons for having zoos. Can you see this as a topic sentence? It tells you what the paragraph is going to be about. Reasons why zoos are good. So then they give their reasons here. Yeah. Most importantly, attract tourists and money for a city. Visitors get a chance to see wild animals, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through this all. And here's an example. Remember, we have to give examples. And then, however, many people feel wild animals should be free. So here we're talking about the other view. They should not be kept in cages. Okay. And then the person's opinion, I strongly believe zoos are no place for wild animals. And then they give their reason. And then conclusion. Yeah, so this is a nice, clear structure. So always think about your structure. Another thing that the examiner is looking at under the cohesion and coherence, remember we talked about the linking words. So here are some nice linking words in this essay. At present, and is a linking word. Them. Why is them important? What is them referring to here? I believe wild creatures should not be kept in zoos and there should be alternative ways to see them. Yeah, what is it refer? Wild creatures. Yes. So instead of repeating wild creatures, it's good to use the pronoun them. Yep. So this is good. This is considered good. So most importantly, these are all linking words. So again, here we're using they instead of wild animals. For example, therefore, because, also, however, as far as I'm concerned. Can you see that these linking words in conclusion, although they guide you through the essay, so they're very important. It's the glue. The linking words are the glue that sticks it together. So we need these linking words to get a good score. All right, so we've talked about the structure and we've talked about analyzing the topic. Now let's look at a few other types. So someone was asking about agree and disagree. This is another common type for both academic and general. And the same with the discuss both views and give your own opinion, academic and general. Some people say that living in a house is much better than living in an apartment. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? So sometimes you have this is when you give your opinion, when it tells you to give you an opinion. I will show you in a band 9 example coming up. Hang on. Okay, so let's do our same thing. Okay, so what is our job here? How much, when you see this word extent, it means how much. So do you mostly agree? Do you mostly disagree? Do you partially agree? Do you partially disagree? How much? Okay, so what I do when I get this kind of, is I try to say the topic in my own words in my head so that I understand it. So what is this about? They say living in a house is better than living in an apartment. So I ask myself, the first thing to do with this kind of question, ask yourself, well, how much do I agree? So let me know in the chat, how much do you agree? Do you mostly agree? Do you mostly disagree? Partly agree? Yeah, it doesn't matter, but you have to have a position. Then you have to think of your reasons. So some people strongly agree, mostly agree. Okay, good. So it's good to have a position. Then the next step, okay, so then we have to think about our structure. Yeah, so when we have this agree, disagree as kind of essay, we have the introduction. I'll talk about what goes in the introduction soon. And you must put your position. So a lot of you said you mostly agree. So you put that in the introduction. Then you talk about your position. You give reasons and examples, usually 3. Then I think it's a good idea to consider the other side. At least have one argument for the other side. You don't have to, but I think it's good. Then you have your conclusion. So a lot of you said that you mostly agree. So the next step we have to do is brainstorm. You actually have to think of your reasons. You will be given some rough paper so you can jot down your ideas. Not like a long thing, but just your ideas. A lot of people do not do this, and then they just keep repeating the same idea. Try to think of separate reasons. So a lot of you said you agree that living in a house is better. Why? Can you tell me why in the chat? So some people said, how do you think of ideas? This is how you do it. You just train yourself to brainstorm. You have to work at it, thinking of ideas quickly. Why? It's less noisy. Yep, you have more space. No need to pay. Oh, you mean like if you own your own house? It could be. You need to explain what that means a little bit. It could be cheaper. How is living in a house cheaper though? I think a house is more expensive to buy, isn't it? Comfortable, more privacy. Yep, more personal space. Perhaps you have a garden also, pet friendly. Yep, you can. Yes. Okay, good. So what about the other side? Like if you consider the other side, apartment, why could it be better to live in an apartment? Safety, yep. Security guards, yep. It can be cheaper to buy an apartment. Yeah, I would think so, more than a house. More social, less isolated in an apartment or a house. I'm not sure. You could argue that both sides actually. Easy to clean, yes. More facilities, yep. Good. So these are all very good. So please do this process. Think of your reasons before you write. Now this one I'm going to show you is more like an 8, quite like a high level essay, probably 8, maybe coming up to 8.5. So let's see how this person has done it. So first, the introduction is a general statement. Everyone wants to live in comfort. Some people find independent houses more convenient. Others prefer modern day apartments. I agree that living in an apartment is more advantageous than living in a house. Okay, so they've got the position in the introduction. If you strongly agree, do you need to discuss the disagreement? You don't have to, Jasper, but I just find it makes a stronger essay if you can at least consider the other side, like just one reason. Yeah, but you don't have to. If you have good, strong reasons, of course you don't have to. Okay. So this is the introduction. So this person said they prefer apartment. So now they're going to talk about why apartment is better. To start with, we are moving towards the culture of nuclear families where most adults work. Life is more stressful and people have less time. Given these circumstances, it is much easier to manage an apartment. That's the first reason. For instance, here's the example. Most apartments have housekeeping facilities that take care of all the cleaning and maintenance work. So can you see that the example just supports your reason? You don't actually tell a long story like, when I was living in an apartment, I met the concierge downstairs and he was a very nice man and he arranged to come up and clean my house and he was very good. He got all the dust. No, you don't tell a long story. Your example just supports your reason. Yeah. Can you put the viewpoint later in the essay? I don't think that's a good idea because the essay says, what extent do you agree or disagree? So I think it's better if you put your position right up the top so that it's clear. Try to make it very clear for the examiner. Yep. Is it okay to use the word we? Yeah, you can use we. IELTS is not strict about that. You don't have to write in the third person. You can use I, you can use we. Yep, fine. Now, here's another reason why apartments are better. Additionally, linking word, apartments are usually gated communities, so they're a lot more secure. To exemplify, so here's an example. Most apartments would have access cards and stickers. Yeah, so that's the example. And then furthermore, here's another reason. Apartments have common facilities like recreational play areas for kids. And then they expand on their reason. So sometimes the example, you don't have to say for example, you can just expand and provide more detail. And here the person is just considering the other side. However, living in an independent house does have its own advantages. So that's your topic sentence, what the paragraph is about. They are certainly more spacious. Owners can freely utilize and modify the space based on their convenience. Yeah. To conclude, apartments have own sets of pros and cons. I believe apartments satisfy the needs of our modern lifestyle. Okay, so conclusion, just kind of summarize everything in the last paragraph. Is it okay to use etc.? I think it's not good to use etc. Is that used here? It's not, because etc. doesn't mean anything. Just say like and this. Etc. is like assumes, it's a meaningless word basically. Is it okay to be subjective or have some bias? Well, Melvin, it's kind of your opinion, so you will be a bit subjective. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Maybe you could give me an example. Okay, good. So let's do one more. Let me just check the time. Oh gosh, we're kind of running out of time a bit. All right, so let's just go through this. We may run out of time a little bit here. I'm so sorry. When we have a lot of people in the webinar, because we've got almost 400 people, it kind of goes a bit slow. I'll go through this a bit quickly. The previous one, I think probably was like maybe an 8, maybe an 8.5 around. It was quite high level. Now let's look at this one. Every year, thousands of students go overseas to study. Although many benefit from the experience, others go home disappointed. What are the benefits and drawbacks of studying in another country? How many things do we have to do in this one? In this essay? 3. Actually, this is 2. We just have to talk about benefits and drawbacks of studying in another country. Yeah, so quite straightforward. Okay, so if we think about our structure, this would be a good structure. The introduction, we talk about the benefits, reasons and examples, drawbacks, reasons and examples, and your conclusion. So let's brainstorm. It's actually good, Ali Reza, if you can think of 3 benefits. In this essay, I've used 2, but I think 3 is actually even better. But you can use 2, at least 2. So what could be some of the benefits? Is it possible to get band 8 without using uncommon vocabulary? Okay, so remember they're looking at 4 things. So if your ideas were 9 and then the others were 8 and then your vocab was 7, 9, 8, so 9, 7, 8, 8, then maybe you could. But you want to be strong in all your skills if you want a band 8. It would be unusual. Okay, let's think of some benefits of studying abroad. You can explore. You're open to new cultures. Yep. What's another benefit of studying in another country? So you have to train yourself to be able to think of ideas quickly. Improve your language skills, independence, international mindedness. Fantastic. Now, what are some drawbacks? So I also thought of some of the same. Oh dear, I just gave you the drawbacks. Let me get rid of my drawbacks. Okay. Yes. What's some drawback? Costs, homesickness, yes. Discrimination, yeah. So I had similar ones. I also had distractions. You know, you go overseas, you get distracted because your family's not around. All right, so once you brainstorm, then you have to write. So our introduction, you will say a general statement about the topic and sometimes give your position. Then each paragraph must have the topic sentence, reasons, and examples. And your conclusion, you just kind of summarize everything. So introduction, we can paraphrase. So the fastest way to write the introduction is just rewrite the topic in your own words. So every year, thousands of students go overseas to study. So you can literally change the words. So every year, annually, thousands of students, a vast number of students, go overseas, venture abroad. Yeah, so you just change the words, literally. That's one way to write the introduction. You don't have to have a certain number of words in the introduction. Yeah, it just has to, it's not that they count the words. Okay, or else if another way to write the introduction is to just write a general statement about people studying overseas. These days, it often seems that almost every new graduate attained their qualification abroad. Yeah. So the body, each paragraph needs the topic sentence, reason, and example. So here we go. So this would be the second paragraph. Can you see the topic sentence? Studying abroad offers a number of benefits. So this paragraph is about benefits. Yeah, so this essay will discuss both benefits and drawbacks. Yeah, this is a more straightforward, simplistic way of answering in a way. Yeah. So if you want a really high score, you maybe don't want to say that. Yeah. You can, it depends. It depends what band score you need. So maybe you let me know what band score you need. Okay, so here's the first reason. Firstly, it facilitates exposure to new and diverse cultures. So there's our reason. Remember, you brainstormed that reason? Students can not only immerse themselves in lifestyle traditions of their host country, but may also have the opportunity to discover worldviews and cultural practices of fellow students from across the globe. Okay, so this is expanding on my reason. In addition, so here's the second reason, being alone in an unfamiliar place and having to solve issues of day-to-day living can foster a strong sense of resilience and independence. For example, here's the example, negotiating rent, transport, and food will teach a young person valuable life skills. So Ravnit, you're asking me the topic sentence for band 8. There's no such thing as this topic sentence is band 8. It's the whole, you can't give a band based on one sentence. It's the overall impression of the essay. So I'm sorry, I can't really answer that question. Okay, so can you see here that my example just supports my reason? In addition, you have to can foster a strong sense of resilience and independence. So here's things that support your independence, that show your independence. Okay, so the example just should support the reason. So now we consider the other side. Conversely, there can be several drawbacks to venturing abroad to study. So here's the topic sentence, what this paragraph is about. One of these could be the confronting sense of culture shock that may arise if a student finds themselves in a place with very different values. And here's the example. For example, if a young person has grown up in a relative conservative or rural environment, studying in a liberal cosmopolitan city may prove to be extremely jarring and have a negative impact. Further to this, so here's another reason on the other side. Very dynamic environment can lead to a range of distractions for an impressionable student whose home is comparatively sheltered. Nightlife, other young people, and the relative anonymity found in a foreign city may be irresistible and again may have an adverse effect on a student's academic pursuits. So this is like an example without saying for example. So 2 drawbacks. And now the conclusion, we just kind of summarize all the points in one paragraph. In conclusion, option to complete tertiary studies abroad can offer increased exposure to other cultures and opportunities to develop a great sense of independence. However, it cannot be denied that overseas study can also lead to culture shock and may also offer many distractions to a naive foreign student. Each person needs to consider their own temperament and circumstances before making this life-changing choice. Okay, so this essay is is at a pretty much a band 9 level, like a high level. Okay, so that's kind of what it would look like. But many of you don't need that. You need 7, right? Or 6.5 or 6. So you don't need to write like that. You think back to the band 7 essay. If the question doesn't ask for your opinion, don't give your opinion. Just answer whatever it tells you to do. Just do that. But you have to think of your reasons and examples every single essay. Okay, Nguyen Kiang, if you need band 8 or above, yeah, maybe you don't want to put like this essay we'll consider, because that's considered a bit more simplistic, a bit more direct. You're right. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a lot about analyzing the question and the structure. We do have to think about the vocab and the grammar. So spelling matters. So in the so there's no spell check, okay? We also don't want to use slang. The writing in the essay is more formal. Yeah. So what do you think? Can you tell me what's wrong with these? You can type in the chat. Less than 250 words is not good. You will lose marks because you don't have enough reasons. You don't have enough content. You can't get a high score. So so number 2 is too informal. Dude, we wouldn't put that in the essay. There's something wrong with this. Cope with, that's right. Result to, yes, taken care of, supposed to be, result in. Okay, so be really careful with the word form. Yeah, that you will lose marks if you have too many of these mistakes. Yeah, and then we also have to think of this thing called collocation. So in this, if we come back to this band 7 essay, there's some nice collocation, words that go together well. Alternative ways, rare species, educational importance, natural habitat. These words sound nice together in English. There are also some more unusual words, a few: attract, endangered, cruel, precious. So this is why this is a band 7 in terms of the grammar. In terms of the vocabulary. What does the them refer to? Them refers to endangered animals. Them. Yep. Okay, now we also have to think about the grammar. I want you to think about trying to write more complex sentences. So both these sentences are correct. Global warming is a phenomenon. It is caused by increased carbon emissions. Global warming is a phenomenon that is caused by increased carbon emissions. Can you see when you join the 2 sentences, it becomes more complex? You want to try to do this more. Yeah, and avoiding grammar mistakes is important. So once again, coming back to this band 7, there are some grammar mistakes. Just because we're running out of time, I won't get you to spot them. Usually I get people to spot them. I'll point out some of them. These are common grammar mistakes. So what I suggest you do is if your grammar is not that great, try to write an essay, show it to someone who has really good grammar, get them to point out your errors. Then you will gradually learn your habits. So one common mistake is what we call articles. So in English, if we have a word that is singular, usually you need a or the in front of it. So all over the world, money for the city, get a chance, the Chinese panda, in a zoo. Okay, so be careful with articles. It cannot be denied. That's okay. You can use that. Is if you're giving a reason, that's fine. It cannot be denied that. Yeah, that's totally fine. That's just like an argument. You're supposed to give reasons. Yeah, you're supposed to give reasons. But when it says, do you agree? If it doesn't say, do you agree or disagree, then don't say, in my opinion, I agree with this. Yeah, but you're supposed to think of arguments. You're supposed to give reasons for the questions that you are asked. So another common mistake is prepositions like this, in instead of at their country, no, in. So in, on, at, to, people often get those confused. Another one is plural. So news story, not just one, news stories. So be careful with those. And this is another common mistake. They are plural. So subject-verb agreement. So be careful with that. Now, in terms of counting words, so if you're doing computer delivered, there's a word count. So that's good. If you're doing paper-based, don't count words. Instead, work out how many words are on one line and work out how many lines you need to do. Don't waste time counting words in the test. But the examiners do count the words if they have to, but they're very good at estimating also. Okay, so just some reminders. When you're doing the test on paper, you can make notes all over the question paper. You can also ask for more paper. If you finish one sheet and you need another one, just ask for more paper. But you don't have time to write a rough draft. Only brainstorming you can do. Don't copy the question, use your own words. Yeah, you've got to think of relevant reasons, not too broad. But also, remember I said don't tell like stories that are very detailed. It's not that kind of essay. Your examples should just support your reason. Okay, now please analyze like we've been doing and then work out your structure. And follow like paragraphs, usually 4 or 5 paragraphs, more formal language. Yeah, so always remember this checklist. Did you look at your instructions and answer properly? Did you have paragraphs, linking words? Check your spelling and a range of vocab, more complex sentences. We also have to be careful with punctuation. It comes under grammar, full stops, capital letters, commas, all of those. So there's some questions here. Oh, there's so many questions. Hang on, I'll come to the questions. We're getting through a lot of questions. Okay, I think we're going to overrun. This partly because we have so many people here. Let me go through this advice and then we'll see what we can do. Okay, so remember task 2 is worth 66%. So you want to make sure you have that full 40 minutes. You need to analyze the question, work out what the instructions are and brainstorm. Have nice, clear paragraphs. Each paragraph has a topic sentence, reasons, and examples. Think about having a range of vocabulary. And linking words to make it flow. If you run out of time, you cannot put notes or bullets. You must write in full sentences. And please leave a little bit of time to check those common mistakes. Now, here are some resources. So when you do IELTS with IDP, you can access this IELTSessentials.com. Of course, you should get to know the IELTS website, IELTS.org. That's very important. Yeah. If you need to go, because we're going to run over time a little bit, please feel free to go. But I'm going to stay and answer questions because this is your session. It's just that when we have so many people, oh, yes, this is our review for task 2. When we have so many people, it tends to take a lot of time. Yeah. So please see if you can do the review. But thanks, if you have to go, thanks so much for staying and all your great questions. And I wish you all the very best with your IELTS. But I am going to stay and answer all your questions. And we'll also have some live questions. Yeah, so get to know the IELTS website as well. I just put it in the chat. Okay. And these, when you do your IELTS with IDP, you can sign up for IELTS Essentials. So you'll get lots of practice materials, Facebook community that you can join, lots of tips, blogs that you can access. So it's very helpful for you. Also, the IDP website has quite a lot of things as well that you can see. So let's just have a look at the results. Exactly 250 words? No, you can write more, of course, but it's a minimum. Yeah, don't count every single word if you're doing paper-based. Just work out how many on a line and then how many lines. Yeah, you cannot write in point form. That's right. You must write in full sentences. Okay, good. So, yes. So I'm going to stop my share now. And let's see if we can have some questions. So,
hi, Miss Jackie. Let's start answering the questions from the Q&A. So first question from Supavit Rangdeng. For task 1 writing, how should we evaluate whether to use present, simple, or past tense?
Task 1. Okay, so if it's a process, is this task 1 academic? I guess so. I'm assuming this is task 1 academic. If it's a process, it will usually be in the present because you're describing facts, and you'll usually use passive, like it is dug up from the ground, it is processed, it is packaged. Yeah. But if it's a graph, then you have to look at the graph. Remember I told you to look at the dates? Check if it's in the past. Very often it's in the past. Then when we describe it, it's better to use the past tense. Yeah, so it did this from this time to this time. Yeah, but sometimes you need to use future. So sometimes it will speculate about the future. Then be careful because it hasn't happened yet. So you might have to say it is projected that this will happen in the future. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Next question from Tinawat. I got 5.5 every time. How can I up my score to 6 or 6.5?
Okay, so if you keep getting 5.5 for your writing, it means, I don't know if this has helped you to see where you might be going wrong, but I think you probably need to work with someone. You're probably not going to be able to do it on your own if you keep getting the same score. So it could be a number of things. It could be that you're just not doing it quite right. And then if you work with a tutor or someone like that, then if you go to the IDP website, they have links to tutors. So you can find a tutor to work with. It could be that your English is not at that level yet. If that's the case, you should probably stop trying to do IELTS and spending all that money and work on your English. But that one I can't tell you. You can only know by working with someone who can look at your English. But if you keep doing the test and you keep getting the same score and you can't improve, yeah, there's something going wrong there. You might need some help.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question from Nguyen. I have a difficulty in organizing the ideas logically. So can I ask some advice to solve this problem?
Yeah, okay. Organizing the ideas logically. Is this for the essay? I think it might be.
Yes.
So try to brainstorm and try to think about your structure. So remember, we've been looking at the topic and then the instructions. So look at the instructions and think about the nice, clear structure. That will help you to organize it logically into clear paragraphs. Remember that slide I showed you, which showed you how to structure the different essay types? Yeah, so use that structure. Then you just have to brainstorm. Think of your reasons and examples. And then, make quite a structured essay. So each paragraph, you have a topic sentence, what the paragraph is about, you have a reason, and you have your example. And you use your linking words, like first of all, reason, example. And additionally, reason, example. Okay, this is not the most advanced way to write the essay, but it makes a very clear, nice, clear essay.
Okay, thank you. Next from Lalu. How to analyze the important data in section 1 in academic writing?
Well, just like we did, you have to spend some time looking at what you're given and working out, like for example, with the graph. Remember I told you what points to look at with the graph? You look at the start, you look at the end, you look for the peak, you look for anything that's different, anything that stands out. That's how you do it. So if it's a table, then you look for the trends and look for the things that are similar and the things that are different, whether it's increasing, whether it's decreasing. Yeah, I don't know. That's
Okay.
how you do it.
Thank you. Next, another question from Saiful. Would you like to explain a bit more about write like you are speaking?
Right, like I'm speaking. Okay, so this is only for the task 1 general, when it's an informal, when you have to write to a friend. So imagine that you're speaking to the friend, but write in full sentences, like a proper sentence. But remember the ones that we looked at, the tone was quite casual. Yes, that is the way to get a good tone for the informal letter, just for the informal letter. The essay is not like that. The essay is more formal writing.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have a question from Mel. On the process task 1, how to avoid listing things?
Listing things. I think the way to avoid that is The process, last one. Okay, so you need to guide the reader through. So with the process, it's steps, right? So you say, initially this, following this is this step. The subsequent step is after this. So you can use the linking words. Try to use a range. So you're not saying and then, and then, and then. Try to use a range of linking words to guide the reader through like that. I think that will help.
Okay. Next, we'll be answering last, I guess, 3 questions from the Q&A. Then we will open a live Q&A from the participants. So the last 3 in the Q&A from Vanabud. What principle do we use to separate the 2 paragraphs like the previous one? Is the drop and the increase, but what if it has more than 2 to compare?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question. Do you mind repeating that?
What principle do we use to separate the 2 paragraphs like the previous example, which is the drop and the increase, but what if it has more than 2 to compare?
Oh, okay. It's not so common that you have more than 2 to compare, but it would just do the same thing. You would look at each 3. Yeah, each of the 3, and you do the same thing. Yeah, I think it's easier to treat them separately. Except in your overview, you need to kind of talk about them all together. You need to mention them all in the overview, but then talk about them separately. It is easier.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question from Sila Birdie. What is it like to leave long-lasting impression in the conclusion paragraph of the opinion essay?
What is it like? So your IELTS conclusion, leave a long-lasting impression. I think that the purpose of the conclusion is to really just summarize all the points. I mean, you can suggest what might happen in the future. That's one idea. Like if this thing continues, yeah, that's a nice way. But it's not, the essay is not about that so much. The essay is the overall has to give a good impression. It's not just like, whoa, end with a bang. So I don't think you have to worry so much about that. Okay. Have a look at models. A lot of it is looking at model essays to see how they've done it and get the feeling of it.
Okay, thank you. Last question from the Q&A from Precious Hong. Can I write down my thoughts and ideas in the question paper to guide myself on writing the essay?
Yeah, you can brainstorm on the question paper. If you're doing paper-based, you can make notes on your question paper. And then, yes, please do that. Brainstorm. And then if you're doing computer delivered, they'll give you some rough paper to make your notes. Please do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So participants, we will be now opening the live Q&A. So please, you may raise your hand and I will call your attention and I will allow you to talk. So once you're being called, please please mention your name and where you come from. Anyone from the participants who wish to ask? Okay, so first we have from Supavit Rangdaeng. Please state your name and where you come from.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
So I'm from Thailand. You can just.
Hi.
I have a questions about the linking words. I have seen the example of band 9, band 8, and band 7, and I noticed something about the linking words. I attend some lecture before, and they say that if the linking word is rather seamless, rather than obvious, it will affect positively on your band score. Is that true?
That's true. So if you can write, like if you want a band 9, honestly, it's really hard to get a band 9 in IELTS writing. So even for an IELTS examiner, an IELTS speaking examiner, they do not need a band 9 for writing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so of course, to get a band 9 it's not just about the linking words, remember? So for the IELTS writing, it's all the 4 things and how they interact. So of course, if you can have seamless linking that flows like very effortlessly, yes, definitely it will, yeah, that would be amazing.
So the score I need is around 7. I take 4 tests. I take 3 tests already. I got 6 and 6.5. But from what you said, I think that it's not that necessary to make my linking word seamless, right?
No. As long as it's clear and it's not repetitive. So try not to have your linkers be very repetitive. Try to use a range of different linking words. But having for 7, just having, remember, see the one that we looked at is the example? They had a range of linking words and it had a nice clear structure. Yeah.
Oh, and can I also ask the other questions?
Sure, I think so.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the from the slide, I can see that the structure is around 4 to 5 paragraphs, but usually I use the last paragraph to express my opinion and as well as include the conclusion in that. Does it affect negatively or it's indifference?
Yeah, so if the question didn't ask you for your opinion, but you put your opinion, it will affect negatively because it didn't ask you for your opinion. So be careful with that. Yeah. Because it's kind of going off what you were asked. Remember, just follow the instructions.
I see.
Okay, thank you very much, Supavit. Next,
for your question.
we have another question from, say, David Odebola. Please state your name and where you come from.
Yeah, I'm David from Malaysia.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you for the lecture.
Sure.
Okay, my question is about is based on task 1. I noticed you were using some words in describing the graphs and the diagrams. So I'm actually confused in a way whereby is it possible that are there particular words we have to use, or because from the image you described that you were using some particular words, some accuracies. So
sorry, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Like from the task 1 diagram and the images you described.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the vocabulary or the structure?
I'm talking about the vocabularies, yes.
So in the task 1 academic, you always have to describe something, right? And many times it's a graph or a line graph or a bar graph. And so we use vocabulary to describe change. So increase, decrease, rise, fall. We use these words a lot. But to make it more interesting, it's better if you can describe how it rises. So is that what you're talking about? So increase steadily.
No, not that. Yeah, I'm actually talking about when you were mentioning the
comparing. Is it the comparing part?
No, the diagram where making of the blocks, the bricks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there were some words you were using in the description. What if those words are not coming at the point I was writing the exams? Does that mean it will affect my mark? Like the specific words of the brick thing, like the plates,
So with the process, you use what's on the diagram to write it, but it's good if you can change the form of the word. So you remember on that diagram, it said things like packaging, delivery, right? Okay. So try to change the form. So instead say they are packaged and they are delivered.
Okay.
Yeah, so try to change the form of the word. But it's also good if you need to mention everything on the diagram. But yeah, if you can use synonyms, like words that mean the same thing, that is also good because it shows you have a range of vocabulary. You're not just copying the words from the diagram.
Okay.
Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Another question from Arif Mahamud. Please state your name and where you come from.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Hi, yes.
Yes, hi.
Okay, first of all, I'm Arif. I'm staying in Thailand. I have been staying in Thailand around 4 years. Well, first of all, thanks to the ma'am because we learned a lot. It's really helpful for us. So my questions is about the structure. So in each paragraph, so should we use a conclusions in the end of the paragraph? Like if we use the two topic sentence in the different paragraph, then.
Oh, sorry. What happened?
Oh, it disappeared. Oh, here he is.
So can you hear me? Or okay.
It kind of got cut off a little bit. You were saying about
okay. So
conclusion in the
yeah. Let me repeat that. So should I add a conclusion at the end of the pages? Like if I use the two pages, like with the different idea, like one paragraph is agree, another is disagree, or one paragraph is for the one point of view and another paragraph is the other point of view, then should I use the conclusion for each paragraph? So that is my own questions.
Yeah, you can do it that way. I didn't talk about that. I didn't do it that way in these models, but you can do that. You just have to be careful that it's not repetitive. Like, although we have a structure, if your structure is exactly the same for every paragraph, it gets a little bit boring and you won't be able to get a really high score. So you can kind of sum up in each paragraph, but I'm just a bit worried then that what will you put in your conclusion, your overall conclusion?
Yeah, so in the overall conclusion, actually, I want to go back a little bit to the questions, to the main point, something like that.
As long as it doesn't as long as it's not too repetitive. Yeah, so you don't have to have a little conclusion for each paragraph. Yeah, but but you could. I mean, as long as it made sense, it's not like there's a rule that you cannot do that. Yeah, it really depends.
Okay, so
yeah.
Thank you. So my second question is that like I need 7 in each band, but I attend 4 or 5 times. So every time I got more than 7 each and another band, except that writing, I always get 6 or 6.5. And what I learned today from you, I realized that most of the things I know about that, and I also applied in the exam. And every day I write essay lots, but still I don't know why I'm not getting the more than 6.5. But other module like reading, listening is more than 7. So I don't know what need to do. So yeah, that is
okay. So I think it seems to me if you can get 7 on the other or higher, then you need to work with someone on your writing, because if you say that all these tips you're already doing that, then you need someone to look at it, someone who's like a tutor who will tell you where you're going wrong, because there's somewhere you're going wrong.
Yeah,
in some way, and so maybe you're not entirely answering the question. Maybe there's too many grammar mistakes, just too many grammar mistakes. I don't know without looking at your writing. But
okay.
Yeah. So what I would advise you to do is go on the IDP website. There are some links to like tutors, and you can, I would just a couple of sessions with someone. You should be able to get on track.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arif. Last 3 questions from our live Q&A. We have question from Preeti Rindi. Please state your full name and where you come from, and please focus only on one question. Hi, Pretty.
Hello, could you hear me?
Yes, Pretty.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Rindy from Philippines. And ma'am, I want to ask a question that I'm a bit confused. Like, it is necessary to compare a data. From example, if in this task it's given bar graph as well as a pie chart in the one paragraph, or we can simply write one paragraph about the bar graph and another one is for the pie chart.
Yes, you can do it separately. It's totally fine, but you have to compare within. So just say you have your pie chart, you have to do your comparing. You still have to do the comparing, but you can do it within that one, and then you can look at the other one and compare. Yep, you don't have to compare across. You can do that if you want to, but many people get very confused and they end up wasting a lot of time.
Okay.
Okay.
But you must still have comparing.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pretty. Next question from Meethy Griffin. Please state your name and where you come from.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Griffin. I'm from Thailand, and the question that I'm going to ask is about, like, I wonder if using a more complex sentence and advanced vocabulary affect the marks and the score more than the stories or the body introduction that you are writing. Like, do they focus more on using vocabulary or complex sentence more than, like, the paragraph or the idea?
Well, remember we looked at the start that each of those four things are worth 25%. So each are equal. Okay, so it's not like one is worth more. So you've got to have all of them. 25% is the grammar, 25% is the vocab, 25% is the structure and the linkers and the flow, and 25% is the ideas.
Okay, and a little bit more. I wonder what is the difference between the introduction and the conclusion. Like, the introduction is like we write the topic in our own words, and also the conclusion is about the overview, right?
Hang on a sec. Are we talking about task 1 or task 2?
Task 2, like the introduction, we write the topic in our own words, and what
that's
more
one
do we
way.
have to put in?
That's one way to do it. So the introduction for the essay, either you can paraphrase the topic, write it in your own words. If it's an argumentative essay like agree, disagree, you should put your position. So you should say, I agree with this view or whatever. You should make it clear in the introduction. But if it's a different type, like discuss both views and give your own opinion, or if it's discuss both views and give your own opinion, you can also give your opinion there. If it's like talk about problems and solutions, you can just say a general statement. Okay, so either you rewrite the topic in your own words, or you can just say a general statement about the topic, for the introduction. Okay. Then the conclusion is really like in every essay, right? When we write an essay at university or school, we just summarize all the points in the conclusion. If you need more words in the conclusion, it's sometimes nice to suggest what might happen in the future. That's also a relevant thing to do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. Next, we have last 2 questions. First, we have from Winifred O'Connor. Please state your full name and where you come from. Hi, Winifredo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
My name is Winnie from the Philippines. So I just want to ask
hi.
About the task 1 and task 2. I think this is silly questions, but I just want to ask and I just want to know. Do the test assessors give considerations especially in time limit. For example, if the time limit is finished, can they give an extra?
Oh, you mean if you do it faster? Is that what you mean? If you finish early?
No. The time limit is finished. Are the assessors can give extra time just to finish?
Sadly, no, because because IELTS is an internationally standardized test. It would not be fair if they gave you more time, but they didn't give other people more time.
We really need
So they're very strict with the timing. So unfortunately, when the time's up, that's why you do need to practice to time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I wish it would be nice, but no.
Okay. Thank you very much, Willie Fredon. Next question our last question from Yenny Uniwati. Please state your full name and where you come from.
Hello, my name is Uniwati. I'm from Indonesia.
Hello.
I have a question regarding with the part 2 of the writing test. When we give reason, is it okay to write the statements based on our cultural or religious belief?
Sure. Yeah, it's your opinion. So your reason, I mean, as long as you can justify your reason, yeah. I mean, and maybe you can say that like in my culture or in my belief system. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, but it might be good to acknowledge that there are other views as well. Do you know what I mean? But it's fine. Yeah, of course, this is like your reasons. Yeah, so that's okay. Yeah.
What if we have a topic that's really not familiar, that's we have no background knowledge about it? What's the strategy?
Yeah, so what you need to do is I didn't really talk about this, but for the IELTS essay, the same kinds of topics come up all the time. So it's important to get familiar with those areas. So in IELTS, the topics are usually about things like the environment, health, education, what else? Culture, transport, the future, like technology, these kinds of things. So starting to follow the news will actually help you have ideas. Yeah, and it's not like you need to be a specialist. It's just, you just have to train yourself to think about things in the news. And another good thing to do is to look at IELTS topics. There are so many different topics online that you can find when you Google. And then just practice training yourself to think of your ideas. Even if you don't write the essay, at least think of the reasons. Yeah, so it's really important to start getting very familiar with the kinds of questions that come up so that you won't be like shocked when you get them. But you'll see that the same types of questions come up again and again. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Because of our limited time.
Yeah, sorry, my fault. I made us go over.
Yeah, it's all right, ma'am. But because of our limited time, we cannot accommodate all the questions. But if you have some questions still, you can message us directly and we will get back to you with a response. Again, thank you everyone for all tuning in, and a huge thank you to Jacqueline for walking us through today's webinar and answering your questions. Miss Jackie, any last words for our test takers?
Oh, no, I just want to thank the whole team as usual, and you, Patrick, for your wonderful facilitation, and the rest of the great team as well. And thanks to everybody who joined us. I really wish you all the best on your IELTS journey. And thanks for your great questions, like really thoughtful, incisive questions. Take care and keep safe. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great night all. Goodbye.